In the quiet Florida suburb of Clermont, February 16, 2018, started like any other day. But for Scott Amatuccio, it was the day he decided he could no longer ignore the gnawing feeling in his gut. He picked up the phone and called the Lake County Sheriff's Office. His request was simple: a well-being check on his friend, Michael Shaver. The reason was deeply troubling. Scott explained that no one had actually seen or heard from Michael since mid-November of 2015. That was over 2 years earlier. For Scott, the official story from Michael's wife, Lori, just didn't add up. She had told everyone, including family and friends, that Michael had chosen to abandon his life. According to Lori, Michael had walked out on his job at Disney World, left the home he owned with her, and most unbelievably to those who knew him, deserted his 2 young children to start a new life with another woman. Scott knew Michael as a dedicated father, a man whose kids were his entire world. The idea that he would vanish without a word, leaving behind everything he owned and everyone he loved, felt impossible. He pointed deputies to the Shaver home at 9850 Sandy Pines Road, a house sitting on 5 acres of land. He also shared his other suspicions. He felt Lori was actively using Michael's Facebook account, pretending to be him to keep up the charade that he was still out there somewhere, alive, and choosing to stay away. Furthermore, Scott noted 2 glaring facts that happened after Michael vanished. A concrete fire pit had suddenly appeared in the backyard, and Lori had quickly remarried. This phone call was the spark. It was the moment the quiet, unofficial mystery of Michael Shaver's absence transitioned into an official law enforcement matter. Deputies now had a duty to visit that home, talk to Lori Shaver, and see for themselves what the truth might be. Scott's act of persistence would set in motion a chain of events that would eventually crack a case wide open, revealing a horror hidden in plain sight, just beneath the surface of a peaceful-looking property. When deputies arrived at the Shaver home, Lori was cooperative. She repeated the story she had been telling for years. She told them Michael had left her and their children. She claimed he had gone to the state of Georgia. She stated the last time he was physically at their house was back in 2014, after an arrest for a domestic violence incident. She said she hadn't seen him since a child custody court hearing in 2015. She presented herself as a woman who had been left behind. She allowed the deputies to look around the property. The 5-acre lot gave plenty of space to wander. Their inspection was general at first, but then their attention turned to a specific feature in the backyard. It was a concrete slab forming a neat patio with a built-in fire pit. Scott Amatuccio had specifically mentioned this fire pit. He said it appeared not long after Michael went missing. The deputies knew that such a structure could be used to conceal something. They asked Lori a direct and significant question. They asked if they could bring in a specially trained dog, a cadaver dog, to sniff the area around and on that concrete slab. The purpose of this dog is to detect the scent of human decomposition. It was a logical investigative step, but it was also a critical test. At that exact moment, Lori Shaver's attitude changed completely. Her cooperation vanished. She became defensive and ordered the deputies to leave her property immediately. She told them they were no longer welcome. She said if they wanted to do anything more, they would have to come back with a legal document, a search warrant signed by a judge. This shift was dramatic and telling. It moved the situation from a casual check into the realm of a serious investigation. For the deputies, this was a major red flag. A person with nothing to hide, who genuinely believed their spouse had simply moved away, would typically have no strong reason to refuse such a request. The deputies left, but now their focus was sharpened. They knew they needed to build a case for a warrant. They began looking into the life of Michael Shaver on paper. What they found was a ghost. His Florida driver's license had expired. His U.S. passport had expired. His pilot's medical certificate had expired. He had no driver's license in any other state. His car had been repossessed. Court papers for a lawsuit could not be delivered because he could not be found. Every piece of practical evidence pointed to a man who had not actively existed in the legal or financial system for years. The digital trail left behind told a story of its own, one that didn't match a man starting fresh. After November 7, 2015, people began to get strange messages from Michael Shaver's Facebook account. They didn't sound like him. To his reliable boss at Disney, a message said to just fire him because he was in Georgia and wouldn't be back. To a friend who planned to visit for Thanksgiving, the message was harsh: "Leave me alone, don't bother me." Months later, in January 2016, his own sister, Christine, reached out worried on Facebook. The reply was cold: "Everyone just needs to leave me alone, just like they did my entire life." In September 2016, his niece, Desiree, messaged him. The account replied, "Who are you? I don't have family anymore." Michael's family knew he would have recognized his niece's name instantly. They believed Lori, who wouldn't have known the maiden name, was the one typing these bitter words. The account wasn't silent either. It remained active, with posts appearing as late as January 2018, more than 2 years after anyone had seen Michael. Meanwhile, his real financial life had stopped, only to be replaced by fraudulent activity. His personal debit card was never swiped in a store after early November 2015. Yet on November 19th and 23rd, online purchases for women's lingerie and clothes were made and shipped to Lori's address. Then, a check for over $2,500 from a loan company was mailed to Michael at his home in late November. On December 11th, the back of the check was signed with an illegible scribble, but Michael's social security number and cell phone were neatly written below. That check was deposited into his bank account at an ATM in Claremont. Over the next 2 weeks, a flurry of ATM withdrawals and online purchases drained every dollar. The shipping address for those online orders was again the Shaver home. To do this, a person needed several things. They needed to get the check from the locked community mailbox. They needed to know Michael's social security number. They needed to have his debit card and know his secret PIN. Most of all, they needed the absolute confidence that Michael Shaver would not show up to report his missing mail, his stolen check, or his emptied bank account. The final days of Michael Shaver's known life are a tight sequence of events. The last confirmed sighting by anyone outside his home was on Saturday, November 7, 2015. He was at a tractor show with Lori and their children. His coworker, Frank Merritt, was also there and later told police that Michael and Lori didn't seem to be getting along. They left the event early. On Monday, November 9th, Michael sent the text message to his boss about quitting to save his marriage. His next scheduled work shift was Tuesday, November 10th. He never showed up and never called. That same day, Lori sent a private message to her sister telling her, "Mike left yesterday, packed his stuff and went to the airport." On Thursday, November 12th, Michael's boss texted him and received the "I'm in Georgia" reply. On Friday, November 13th, concerned coworker Frank went to the Shaver house. Lori told him she and Michael had fought after she found another woman's number in his phone, and that a friend named Robert Mercado had driven Michael to Georgia. When investigators later interviewed Robert, he firmly denied ever driving Michael anywhere. On Monday, November 16th, Lori sent another message to her sister. This one had a different tone. She wrote that over the weekend of November 14-15, she had done tons of yard work and cleaned up outside. During this exact period, people who knew the family reported Lori trying to sell Michael's possessions. She never tried to call his cell phone after early November, though she had called him frequently before. She never filed for divorce. She never tried to get child support. She simply began acting as if Michael Shaver had ceased to exist, all while telling others he was alive and choosing to be elsewhere. Lori Shaver's personal life moved forward with a speed that raised eyebrows. She began a relationship with a married man named Jeremy Townsend in September 2015, 2 months before Michael vanished. She told Jeremy she had left her husband. He first visited the Shaver home in December 2015, shortly after Michael's disappearance. He noticed dark stains on Lori's jeans and asked if it was blood. She didn't answer directly, simply changed her pants and never wore that pair again, even though they had been a regular part of her wardrobe. By early 2016, she was in a relationship with Travis Filmer. It was during this time, around March of 2016, that the concrete fire pit was constructed. Travis later told police he helped Lori pour the concrete slab in September 2016, and they marked their initials in it. But he found something odd. Before the pour, the hole was only about 3 or 4 inches deep. However, the pile of dirt Lori said came from that hole was massive, far too large for such a shallow excavation. In December 2016, while still legally married to Michael, Lori married Travis Filmer in a backyard ceremony. On their wedding night, Lori became upset, locked herself in a bedroom, and brandished a gun before being calmed down by a family member. During her time with Travis, she made several alarming statements. She told him directly that Michael wasn't just missing, he was no longer walking this earth. She said something bad had happened to him and hinted there was a body on the property. Simultaneously, a bizarre harassment campaign was unfolding. Jeremy Townsend's wife, Vanessa, began receiving Facebook messages and texts from someone claiming to be Mike Shaver in early 2016. Mike told Vanessa about the affair between Lori and Jeremy, sent her a flower arrangement with a nasty poem, and even recommended a divorce lawyer. The messages were manipulative, seemingly aimed at breaking up Jeremy's marriage. When investigators later investigated, they found the flowers were purchased with Lori's debit card. The phone number used to text Vanessa was registered to Lori and had not been active before Michael disappeared. The history between Michael and Lori Shaver was not a peaceful one, providing a possible motive for violence. Their relationship was volatile and marked with conflict. In September 2014, Lori called the police to their home after a fight. When deputies arrived, Michael stated the argument had gotten physical quickly and he wasn't sure who had touched whom first. Lori told them Michael had pushed her into a wall and then retrieved a gun, which they struggled over. Michael was struck in the head with the firearm during the fight. Officers saw bruising on Lori's arms and back. Michael was arrested for battery. He later agreed to a plea deal and completed a program. Following this incident, the couple separated. Michael moved into an airplane hangar at his workplace. During their separation, both began dating other people. Michael dated a coworker named Kendall. According to Kendall, Lori harassed her relentlessly, sending threatening messages, calling her family, and even filed a complaint with Disney. Lori's stated position, according to Kendall, was that she was allowed to date, but Michael was not. Kendall ended the relationship in May 2015 due to the stress, and Michael moved back home with Lori shortly after. Friends and coworkers saw signs of trouble in the month leading to Michael's disappearance. A coworker noted that 3 to 4 months prior, Michael had bruises on his face, chest, and arms. When asked, Michael explained Lori had become enraged and punched him repeatedly with closed fists. He said he didn't fight back because it wasn't worth it.
On March 9, 2018, armed with a search warrant, Lake County deputies returned to 9850 Sandy Pines Road. They brought tools, forensic equipment, and a trained cadaver dog. The warrant specifically allowed them to search the property and examine the concrete fire pit. The dog was led around the slab. It alerted, indicating it detected the scent of human decomposition. Investigators then used ground-penetrating radar, which sends signals into the ground to create an image. The radar showed an anomaly, a disturbance in the soil, underneath the concrete. With this evidence, they began the methodical process of breaking apart the slab. They chipped and sawed through the thick concrete that Lori Shaver and Travis Filmer had poured. Beneath it, they dug into the Florida earth. Approximately 3 feet down, their shovels struck something that was not dirt. They carefully uncovered the find. It was a bundle, wrapped in a blue tarp. Inside the tarp was a queen-sized fitted sheet. The entire bundle was tightly bound with ratchet straps. Inside were human skeletal remains. The location was grimly ironic, just feet away from where Lori had held her backyard wedding to Travis. Forensic technicians documented the scene meticulously. The sheet was a crucial piece of evidence. It was identified as coming from Kohl's department store. Investigators pulled Lori Shaver's bank records and found multiple transactions at Kohl's, proving she shopped there frequently. The remains were transported to the medical examiner. DNA testing provided the definitive answer. They were the remains of Michael Shaver. The cause of death was determined to be a single gunshot wound to the back of the head. A .38 caliber bullet was recovered from his skull. The medical examiner estimated that death had occurred several months to several years before discovery, fitting the late 2015 timeline. Back at the house, another forensic test was performed. Investigators used a chemical called Blue Star, which reacts with the invisible traces of blood, even after cleaning. In the track of the home's sliding glass door, the same door involved in the 2014 domestic incident, the Blue Star lit up, revealing a drip-like pattern. This suggested a violent event had occurred there. The search warrant had done its job. Michael Shaver had been found, not in Georgia, but buried on his own property, concealed under a slab of concrete. With Michael Shaver's remains found and identified, the focus turned to justice. On September 17, 2020, Lori Shaver was arrested and charged with second-degree murder with a firearm and accessory after the fact. She appeared in court, entered a plea of not guilty, and was later released in December after posting a $50,000 bond. She returned home to her children while awaiting trial. The case, however, would take a complicated and unexpected turn. In May of 2023, Lori Shaver's defense attorney filed a motion with the court. The motion revealed a shocking new claim. The attorney stated they now had testimony from a minor child. The child, who was 14 years old at the time of the filing, was reportedly prepared to confess. The defense claimed this child was Michael and Lori's daughter, who was only 7 years old in November 2015. According to the defense, the child would testify that she shot her father. The motion alleged the shooting happened while the child was trying to protect her mother during a violent domestic incident. The defense argued Lori was not the killer and asked the court to allow the child to undergo psychological evaluation to prepare for testifying. This development created a profound legal and ethical dilemma. In the state of Florida, there is no minimum age for criminal responsibility for serious felonies like murder. While a law prevents the arrest of children under 7 for most crimes, it makes an exception for forcible felonies, which include homicide. This meant the child could potentially face charges. The claim also forced the court to consider a tragic scenario that the violence in the Shaver home had culminated in a moment of catastrophic trauma for a young girl. Prosecutors now faced the task of evaluating this new testimony against the mountain of circumstantial evidence pointing to Lori. The financial fraud, the Facebook impersonation, the suspicious statements to boyfriends, and the act of burying a body and building over it. As of now, the case remains pending, with the court weighing this serious and sorrowful claim. The mystery of how Michael Shaver died may have a new contested answer, but the central truth remained unchanged. He never left his family, and his final resting place was a shallow grave in his own backyard, hidden for years under a slab of concrete. What do you guys think really happened? Was it the actions of a 7-year-old girl or the mastermind of a horrible wife? Drop your answers in the comments section. Like the video if it touched you, and as always, I will be seeing you on our next episode.